You all believe that my love for Lily Potter was the secret key to the Dark Lord's final defeat. But what if that love had actually saved her, and in doing so, doomed the entire wizarding world to a much darker fate? What if my great, supposed redemption didn't lead to your happy ending, but instead kicked off a war that never, ever stopped? My unrequited love is painted as the tragic heart of the saga, the reason for my ultimate sacrifice. But let us rewind to one single, fateful night in 1976, to the exact moment where everything could have been different. What if Lily Evans, looking at a desperate and apologetic Severus Snape at me, made a different choice? What if she had forgiven me, and in that one act of mercy, accidentally condemned her world to a generation of darkness? You know the memory, my worst. That humiliating moment by the lake where James Potter and his pack of hyenas hung me upside down for the entire school to see. In my shame and my fury, I lashed out at the only person who tried to help. I called Lily Evans a mudblood. The insult was a deep wound, a betrayal that proved all of her worst fears. That the boy she grew up with was being consumed by the bigotry of my Slytherin associates, the future Death Eaters, Mulciber and Avery. Later that night, I stood outside the Gryffindor common room, genuinely sorry, begging for her forgiveness. "I'm sorry," I whispered. Now, in the story you know, Lily's answer was final. She could not move past my obsession with the dark arts or the company I kept. "You call every one of my birth that name, Severus. Why should I be any different?" Our friendship shattered, and that rejection was the final push that sent me directly into the arms of the Death Eaters, seeking the power I could not find in friendship. But in this timeline, something was different. As Lily looked at me, she didn't just see a budding bigot. She saw the lonely boy from Cokeworth who first told her she was a witch. This time, my apology felt real to her, not an excuse, but a desperate plea. She hesitated, her hand on the portrait of the fat lady, and she offered me an ultimatum, a lifeline. "If you mean it, Sev," she said, her voice trembling but firm, "then you're done with them, with Avery, with Mulciber. You have to choose. It's them or it's me. In your story, my silence at a moment like this sealed my fate. But here, faced with the immediate, real possibility of losing the only friend I ever had, I did not hesitate. My ambition, my pride, it all evaporated. "You," I said, so quiet it was almost a whisper. "It's always been you." And with that one word, the timeline fractured. My choice was not a quiet one. To prove my sincerity, I had to publicly turn on my old friends. I openly rejected the pure-blood nonsense of my house and quickly became an outcast in the Slytherin dungeons. I was isolated, certainly, but I was not alone. I had Lily. And this single repaired friendship sent ripples across all of Hogwarts. Consider it. The entire dynamic of the Marauders changed. Potter's rivalry with me lost its black and white feel. He wasn't just bullying some slimy dark arts-obsessed Slytherin anymore. He was tormenting Lily's friend, a boy she had publicly vouched for. Lily's protection forced James to confront his own arrogance. His canon maturity, driven mostly by his attempts to win her affection, had to accelerate. He had to become a better man, not just to impress her, but to earn her respect in a world where her loyalties were far more complicated. The Snivelous caricature was replaced by the much more complex reality of Severus Snape, Lily Evans's friend. Meanwhile, my entire future was altered. My considerable talent in potions and the dark arts was no longer a tool to gain favor with the Dark Lord. I didn't need validation from Death Eaters, because Lily's friendship had filled that void. My hatred for James Potter remained, obviously, but it was a personal grudge, not a step on a path to genocidal ideology. I threw myself into my studies, not to become a weapon, but to prove Lily's faith in me was justified. A few years passed. The First Wizarding War grew worse, but a key moment from your timeline simply never happened. In 1980, a desperate version of me, by then a sworn Death Eater, followed Dumbledore to the Hogshead Inn. He was attempting to overhear anything that might secure his place in Voldemort's inner circle, and he did. He heard the first part of Trelawney's prophecy about a child with the power to vanquish the Dark Lord. He ran and told Voldemort what he had heard, the very act that pointed Voldemort directly at the Potters and the Longbottoms. But in this new timeline, I was not at the Hog's Head. Why would I be? I was not a Death Eater. I was not trying to impress the Dark Lord. I was likely studying with Lily, perhaps brewing a new potion together. The prophecy was still made, but only Dumbledore heard it. No one delivered the tale to Voldemort. The fallout from this was enormous. Voldemort, with no knowledge of the prophecy's existence, had no reason to hunt down the Potters. Lily and James went into hiding, like other members of the Order of the Phoenix, but they were not the personal targets of the most powerful dark wizard alive. There was no Fidelius charm on their house in Godric's Hollow. Peter Pettigrew was never made their secret keeper, which means he never had the opportunity for his great, catastrophic betrayal. On October 31st, 1900, Lily and James Potter lived. They raised their son, Harry, in a world at war, but they did it together. And Harry Potter grew up not as the boy who lived, not as a symbol of hope, but just as Harry. A boy with a mother and a father, no lightning bolt scar, and no legendary destiny. The wizarding world celebrated when the Dark Lord fell in 1981. It was a moment of incredible relief, the end of a nightmare. But in this new reality, that relief never came. Without a prophesied hero, and without the ancient magic of Lily's sacrifice, Voldemort was not defeated by an infant. The war of the 1970s simply continued. It bled into the 80s, and then into the 90s. And this was not some Cold War. It was a brutal, grinding war of attrition. The early shock and horror were replaced by a permanent state of fear. The Ministry of Magic grew more and more authoritarian, passing harsh laws in the name of security. Hogwarts became a fortress where students learned defensive spells not for their OWLS, but for their own survival. Casualties continued to mount. Familiar names you know from the Second Wizarding War became the fallen heroes of the First. Families were torn apart not by one night of shocking violence, but by a slow, agonizing drain over decades. There was no boy who lived to rally behind. The hope that came from a single child's survival was gone. In its place was only a grim, tired resilience. The fight against Voldemort was not a fairy tale quest for a chosen one. It was a desperate, bloody struggle for survival with absolutely no end in sight. The world was saved from the trauma of Godric's Hollow, but was given a chronic, festering wound that poisoned an entire generation instead. So, where was I in all of this? I was not the bitter, guilt-ridden double agent, you know. When I graduated from Hogwarts, my loyalty was already proven, and I joined the Order of the Phoenix right alongside Lily and James. It was an uneasy fit, especially for Sirius Black, but my brilliance was impossible to deny. Dumbledore, realizing what an asset he possessed, put my vast knowledge of the dark arts to good use. I became one of the Order's most vital members. I created new defensive potions, analyzed dark objects, and provided strategic insight into Death Eater tactics I had learned back in Slytherin. My skills in occlumency and legilimency made me the perfect interrogator and intelligence agent, but my greatest contribution might have come from a most unexpected alliance. In 1979, another Slytherin, Regulus Black, discovered the Dark Lord's Horcruxes and decided he wanted out. In your timeline, he died alone in that cave, his mission a failure. But here, he knew there was another Slytherin who had turned his back on the darkness. Me. Regulus came to me. Together, with my strategic mind and his inside knowledge, we planned the retrieval of that locket Horcrux. And perhaps, in this world, my cunning allowed us to acquire it without Regulus being dragged to his death by the Inferi. 2 redeemed Slytherins began the Horcrux hunt a decade and a half early. This is the terrible irony of my redemption. By saving myself, I created a world that is, arguably so much worse. Yes, Lily lived. The Potters remained a family. I became a true hero, a respected member of the Order, finally free from the crushing guilt that defined my other life. Lily and I kept our friendship, a real testament to her faith in me. But all of that personal salvation came at a global price. An entire generation was lost to a seemingly endless war. The dream of a quick victory was replaced by the grim reality of a long, bloody stalemate. Lily's act of mercy saved my soul, but it may have doomed the wizarding world. It forces a difficult question. Is one man's redemption worth the suffering of millions? By fixing one of the story's greatest tragedies, we accidentally erased the very thing that, for all its horror, gave the world its greatest hope and its only path to peace. What do you think? Was Lily's forgiveness a terrible mistake in the long run? Could this new, redeemed version of me have found a way to defeat the Dark Lord without the prophecy? Leave your theories in the comments below, and if you enjoy exploring the alternate realities of the wizarding world, be sure to hit the like button and subscribe for more what ifs.